Hi everyone, it's Darlene. Welcome back for video 2 in my series One Flower 8 Ways. In the first session I colored this flower by Altenew with dry Inktense pencils. Today I'm going to be coloring them with Inktense pencils and water. Today I'm using Strathmore watercolor paper. I love this watercolor paper because it's lightweight, it's only 90 pounds, so I use it a lot. I am using an aqua painter. There are many different brands of aqua painters. My favorite is the small Stampin' Up! Aqua Painter. I also use the Ranger Detailer brush quite a bit, but I feel like there's a tiny little bit of a better water flow with the Stampin' Up! One. So I'm also using the same pencils. I'm using the Sun Yellow and Tangerine for my flowers. I went over the pencils themselves and a little bit about them in my first video, so I'm not going to do that here. If you want to watch that, you can go back to video number 1. So anyway, let's get started. Just like I did in the first video, I'm going to start with the darker colors, except the difference here is that I'm going to be using less pressure. I'm just going to add some light color, so I'm very just lightly touching the cardstock with my pencil. And also, by the way, I heat embossed this, and when I'm using watercolor I almost always heat emboss my images because it helps me stay in the lines, and that's really helpful when you don't want water blending across the line. So anyway, this is my Tangerine, and I'm going to put some color right over here where this crease is in my flower petal. And you can see how light that is. I'm going to actually zoom in a little bit. Oh, okay. And then this part where the petal comes over, I'm going to color that also a little bit darker. And I'm just going to kind of lightly color it in. And I don't want to leave too much white because I don't want the flower to have any white areas. I want it to be mostly orange and yellow. So then I'm going to finish off with a very light touch of the yellow. You can see how light this is. You don't need much of the color from the Inktense pencil because the water really brightens it up. Alright, so I have my water brush here, and also have a tissue. I always keep a tissue handy because I'm going to need to wipe off color when I want to kind of refresh my brush a little. So I always start in the lighter area. So if I only had one color, I would start, like if I had just colored with the orange and not the yellow, I would have started where the yellow is and worked my way into the orange. Since I have yellow, I'm just going to start in the yellow. I'm actually going to test my brush, make sure I don't have too much water. I did have quite a bit of water on there. It's better to start with not as much water. So I'm going to work my way. You can see how it just sort of melts this pencil and go to the edge. Once I hit the edge, I don't want to come back because then I'll get too much orange into my yellow. So I wipe off my brush and I start over in the yellow, and then I work my way to the orange. You just have to be careful that you don't come back into the lighter color. For this area, I'm just going to tap in a little bit of water. And then for this side, I'm just going to start in the yellow just like I did before. And you can see how bright the yellow becomes when the water hits it. And then I'll go toward this crease. And if you want to blend the colors a little bit more, you can start in the orange and kind of pull it out just a little bit. It's better to do a little bit of blending and then add more later. And this is pretty light, so I'm going to grab a little bit more of this orange and pull it in toward the yellow. And once this dries, it's permanent. So, you know, like with the distress markers, you can reactivate it. With this, it's not so easy to do. So I'm going to go ahead and do the next flower, lightly coloring the bottom. I like to do the bottom as like a darker area because it's more of a shadow, and then also behind the petal in front of it, because you'll get a little bit of a shadow area. And then over here on this curl, and then inside my crease. And I'll take my yellow, color it in this way, same as I did in the first session. And now I'm going to take my aqua painter, start in the yellow, and slowly move my way toward the orange. And once I hit the edge, I'm going to stop, wipe, and then start again. And I can pull more orange back. It's better to pull a little bit back at a time because otherwise you'll end up with one big massive orange petal, and you don't want that. So every time I take my hand away, I'm wiping it off on this tissue. And pull this color down, and then I'll color this orange tip right here. And and then pull it out as I need it. I want to pull this orange out just a little bit. And that's petal number 2. All right, one more. I'm going to do this bottom one here. Color the bottom, and then this bottom part, because this is where my shadow is going to be, inside the crease again, and behind the petal, toward the back. And then I've got my yellow. If you leave a white area, it'll be a pale yellow or a pale orange, which may not, go with the flower as well as if you cover the whole thing with yellow and orange. So I'm going to turn it this way because I find it easier to move that way. So that way I start with my yellow and I move into my orange. So with practice, you'll figure out the best way to orient your paper so that you have the most amount of control. Color in toward the orange, wipe, and then a little bit coloring right there where the orange is. I think I want a little bit more orange to come in. You can see how I still get a little bit of orange even though it's dry, just a tiny little bit. There. Okay, I'm going to speed this up and color the rest. All right, one more thing I want to show you is you can actually pull color off the pencil. So if you want to be a little bit more precise in your application, you can just touch your aqua painter to the tip of the pencil. It's not going to damage the pencil at all. It'll still work perfectly fine, sharpen perfectly fine. But then you have some color on your aqua painter. So if I want to add a little bit more orange, I could right here. I barely put any on there because I don't want to put too much, but you can just basically just pull it off the edge. And now you see all that bright orange I have. That's a little too much, I'm going to take some off. But just kind of you get the idea that you can have really precise application when you add a little bit of the color to your brush and then go directly to the paper. Okay, so those are the petals done. Now I'm going to start working on the stems. Once again, I'm using the same colors I did before, apple green and felt green. And I'm going to start with my darker one. And again, just very light pressure. You can see before when I was using them dry, I was really putting a lot of heavy pressure. But this just requires a tiny bit of color. So I'm just gonna lightly kind of sketching it in here. And then I'm gonna put some lighter green up here. And I might actually leave some of this white so you can see how this works. All right, so I'm gonna take my aqua painter and I'm going to start in the white area and move toward the color, having my tissue handy so that I can wipe off any excess color. So start with the white, and this allows you to wet the white area so that it will kind of blend into it. It won't be dry, it'll be ready for color. I'm going to push this in until I get to the bottom where it's going to be pretty dark because that's my darkest green. And then I can start pulling the color back out. Let's see how I like this. Wipe off because I have a lot of green. Just kind of pull it a little bit upward. And now I'm going to work on that outside edge and see how this looks. I'm not sure I like the white. I might go back and fill that in with some green. It's not quite as vibrant as the last flower I did. So that's okay. I'm going to take the darker green. This is the felt green, and I'm going to pull some off the tip. And that's going to make it a lot darker. So I'm going to fill it in down here and work my way up. You can see how dark this looks. And once I get it however far up I want, I'm going to wipe my pen and then I'll work backwards to blend it together so that I don't get too far up with the dark. And then I'm going to take my lighter one, pull some color off, and start up here. And I think I'm not really going to have any white area. Pull some for the top of this other part. Color that. And I think I just want some more at the bottom. So I'm going to color. You can still color it while it's wet too. This is going to give you a little bit more intense color. And then color it in and pull it up. So you kind of have to play with it depending on what look you want. A little bit more color at the top. There. Okay, let's work on the next one. This one kind of goes off to the side, so I'm gonna have a dark area here, and then along this crease in the leaf, and then also at the bottom. That'll be kind of a shadow. I'll color the rest in light. And now I'm kind of going with the same technique I use for my petals. I'll take my aqua painter, start in the light green and move to the dark. I think I definitely like this better. The light, or leaving part of it white, kind of mutes it a little bit, and I really like the vibrant color. That's perfect. Okay, I'm going to finish with these leaves and I'll be right back. Alright, so you probably noticed how I was getting much better variation of color and just a nice vibrant color when I didn't leave any of the areas white, so I colored the whole thing in. Okay, next I'm going to work on this leaf. I talked a little bit about the form of this leaf in my last video, but I'm basically going to follow these creases and work around this little thing here. I'm not sure what to call it, part of the stem. And so I'm just going to kind of add some color to each one. And then I worked my way across here and then down at the bottom because I'm going to get some shadow area down here. And across here. So just going to give some dimension to my leaf. And then I'm going to take my other green, this is the apple green, and I'm just going to color it in. You can see how much light pressure I'm using. I'm just kind of sketching it in circles just to fill it in, and this is also a time when you don't want to have a sharp tip. That way you get just kind of a light application of color. And now I'm going to come in here and start in the light, work my way to the dark, have my tissue handy, and just work my way around. And you can see every time I hit the dark green, I stop and I wipe my brush. And this just makes sure that you have definition of multiple colors so that you can see them. Because if you just keep blending, you're going to end up with one color of green for your whole leaf. And that's just not as interesting. So work my way around here. And if you need more water, you can always squeeze. But I find that if you're gonna squeeze off the cardstock because you never know how much might come out. Okay, so that's that part. I'm gonna add a little bit of a dark area at the bottom of this, which is what I did in my first video. Put the light on top. And actually squeeze a little and then come in. Okay, and then I'm gonna color this the same way. Okay, now what's left is the stems. I'm just gonna grab this and just lightly put a tiny little bit of the dark color on the left. And around the edges here where I think there might be a shadow. And then I'm gonna grab my other green, kind of fill it in a little bit the best I can. You're not even really gonna see this light one with this area being so small, but it is embossed, so it'll contain the water inside the lines, and you'll be able to see that it will actually show once I get the water in there. So I'm going to hit this with the water And I'm really just sort of swiping because I don't want to put too much water or blend too much because the area is so small that you really just want a touch of water and then let the rest blend on its own. And then around here. That's pretty easy to do. Now I think I need a little bit more dark here. This looks like it all blended together because it's such a small area. So again, I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to grab some color and just highlight near that crease. You can see how it really shows that dark green. You add a little bit more here. That doesn't look like it's blended, but once I take the water off my pen, then I can now coming in here with just water and I just blend the line between the dark green and the light green. Okay, so one last thing is these. I'm gonna do what I did before, pulling some color this way just because it's so tiny. I'm just gonna color it in. You don't really need much definition because it's just so small. Now this flower I notice has a little bit of white areas where I missed, so I'm going to fill those in with the dark. Okay. And then finally I am going to add a little bit of dark right there. Just a little touch. So you can barely see, but it does make a little bit of a difference. And you could put layers of this color on. So if you apply a light layer and then you can go back in and add some darker if you want. So that is how you color with Inktense pencils and water. You get a really nice, pretty, it's vibrant, not quite as vibrant as the dry pencils, but still very vibrant for watercolor. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that second video and I'll see you for the third.